What's up, everybody? Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Live Me. Hotcakes, how are you? Hyper Intake, how are you? Just Some Teenager, how are you? Good morning. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. Good to see everybody. Hello, YouTube. So we got some stuff on the docket today. For anybody that may be tuning in for the first time, especially over on the YouTube, you may be wondering, what the hell is this? This is Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means you guys send me the articles that we talk about. You tweet me at Ron Placone. That's my Twitter, at Ron Placone, and you tell me what you want to talk about. And that's how we build the show. You can participate in the chat. However you want to do it. That's the whole point of this show. I have not seen any of these articles in advance, and I'm seeing all of them for the first time myself, and that's pretty cool. So that's what we do here. That's how we do it. And let's see if you guys started sending some stuff yet. And we officially start once I get 30 people on the Live Me stream. That's the benchmark that we have to reach, and then I will officially play the theme song and we will begin. So if you want to send some articles, please do send them over to me on Twitter at Ron Placone, or you can send them to me over on the Reddit page. We have a Reddit subsection page. It's just reddit.com/r/getyournewsonwithron, all spelled out. Get your news on with Ron. And you can tweet me articles there, or rather, post articles there. And that's kind of how we'll do things. And yeah, it's a fun time. It's a fun time. Well, all right, we're at about 17, so the show is going to start really soon. 19. What's up, Winkle? What's up, Cosmo? Good morning, everybody. What phone service do you use? I use Verizon, but what's up, Bella Ryan? What's up, Kate? I've been living where I live for about a year and a half, Marie. I've been living here in Pasadena, California. Good morning, Bella Ryan. Oh man, you're doubling it up, watching on both maps. Cool. Some of you guys are on both YouTube and Live Me. That's awesome. Well, you got to do what you got to do if you're planning on switching self-services. I mean, I'm not a big fan of any of them, to tell you the truth, but you need self-service. You gotta participate, right? You can't avoid it. Part of the reason why we're here doing our thing. It's necessary. We got a lot to talk about today. Speaking of Sanders, look at Hillary Clinton's watches. Yeah, it's interesting. The same people that wag their fingers at others for being quote unquote too pure are now making a big deal about a jacket that was a gift. That's very, very interesting to me. Very interesting to me. Guys, feel free to tweet over some articles at Ron Placone. And guys, we just passed 30. You know what that means? The show has officially begun. Get your news on with Ron. If you want to know what's going on, we're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. If you want to know what's going on, we're getting our news on today. Yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together. We'll make it all our own. Get your news on with Ron. If you want to know what's going on, we're getting our news on today. Yeah. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming online news show. What does that mean? That means you guys tweet me articles at Ron Placone, and we talk about them. And I am seeing all this for the first time, just like you. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. This is our first official time doing a stream on both the Live Me and on the YouTube. So we'll see how this goes. This is a new thing for me. This is a new thing for all of us. But Live Me, folks, I still am going to participate in the chats on Live Me. And Twitter, folks, still do tweet me the articles over on Twitter. That's how I get the content from you guys. And, you know, just kind of do you. Have you ever watched Criminal Minds? If so, do you like it? I have never watched Criminal Minds. So unfortunately, this segment's going to be pretty short. I've not watched Criminal Minds. I don't really know much about it. Is it I'm guessing it's a TV show. I'm not even totally positive if it's a series or if it's but I have heard the name, but I'm honestly not familiar with it. So this is something I wanted to start with that I think is kind of an important thing that I've been wanting to talk about and just haven't had a chance to yet. So let's see here. Let's jump into this. I want to talk about what's going on over in France in regards to fake news. So here's the headline here from Politico.eu. That's where I'm at. Macron's fake news laws will protect democracy. So this is, President Macron over in France. President Macron kicked off the year by announcing the introduction of legislation to safeguard liberal democracy in France, at least, from fake news. All right. So, I'm just reading about this for the first time, you guys, and there's a little bit of a few red flags that go up right away. First of all, who do we assign to determine what is and isn't fake news? Do we use the government? Do we use some kind of outside party? Do we use, like who? In many ways, it's a rhetorical question. Who is qualified to make that designation? Especially here in the United States, where we have a lot of things that are called "quote unquote" fake news that are not fake news. So let's go through this. All right. Twitter commentators were quick to attack him, this is in regards to Macron, for oversimplifying the problem to make a political point, and they may be right, but at its core, Macron's instinct is the right one. This is according to the article I'm looking at. We need to rethink the rules of engagement in social media and hold accountable producers, distributors, and financiers of content without compromising on freedom of speech. Okay, well, that's not an easy task. Macron's proposal includes tougher rules for social media platforms when it comes to revealing the sources of sponsored content. It would also strengthen the authority of France's media watchdog, the Conseil supérieur de l'audiovisuel. Don't speak French. No, I don't know if you could tell. I don't speak French. Or CSA, to impose heavy fines on outlets who publish or distribute lies, rumors, and gossip. Parlo italiano. Così, così. All right. So, first of all, right away, sponsored content is 100% of the time fake news. Sponsored content is just automatically fake news. Because what sponsored content is it's paid content, and it's basically a PR piece that's passed off as journalism. Now, getting back into this paragraph, I don't know if you should do anything to the distributors. That raises a red flag, because a lot of people that share sponsored content don't realize that's what they're doing, because sponsored content is intended to trick you. They want you to think you're reading a piece of journalism when in reality you are reading a piece of propaganda and you're just reading a press release, but it's being passed off as news. Recently, a Sinclair broadcasting station was airing sponsored content, passing it off as a news report for over a year, and they finally got caught. They got sued. The institution was a cancer institution. And I don't know much about the institution itself, so maybe it was one of the good ones. Maybe it was one of the not so ethical ones. I have no clue. But in principle, that doesn't really necessarily matter, because what was going on there was illegal. You can't use sponsored content and pass it off as news and not tell people that this is what it is. Personally, I think sponsored content should just be straight up illegal. I think a commercial should be a commercial, and I think news should be news. We already blur the lines between news and PR. Sponsored content eliminates those lines completely. So I think in principle it should just be illegal anyway. But, that's kind of like a moral a moral stance. So, I mean, that's one thing that if it is sponsored content, meaning a company paid, like a good example of sponsored content, you'll get an environmental article on the internet about, say, fracking, just as a for instance. And then at the bottom of that article, you'll see an article down below that looks like an article, and it's from ExxonMobil. And it's talking about how fracking's actually really good for jobs, fracking's not dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. And at the bottom of the article, there is a small disclaimer saying that it's sponsored content, saying that, hey, this isn't actually a news report, this isn't actually a rebuttal, this is a paid commercial, essentially. So, you know, a lot of times people share sponsored content not knowing that's what they're doing. So, you know, over in France, when they're talking about the rules of engagement. Bella Ryan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the magic wand and the diamonds. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Bella Ryan. Thank you. Macron's proposal includes tougher rules for social media platforms when it comes to revealing the sources of sponsored content. I have no problem with revealing the sources. I have no problem with, if it's sponsored content, there's a bigger disclaimer so people know that's what it is. That's fine. As far as like penalizing a user, that draws a red flag to me, because a lot of people will share sponsored content not realizing that's what they're doing. It'd be great if there was a way for them to more easily realize that's what they're doing, sure. But should they be penalized for it? Should they, like, you know, have their account be suspended or something like that? I don't think so. Furthermore, who's the authority that's going to enforce that? So you see how this is a pretty complex issue. To be sure, it's usually problematic when the state gets involved, this is back to the article, in defining what constitutes the truth. Sure, yeah, totally get it. But liberal democracies are engaged in an uneven information war, and in the muddy trenches, it's hard to decipher fact from fiction. The stakes are high. Our hearts and minds and the values that underpin the free and open society we take for granted. Something has to be done, all right? To stay on the right side of freedom of speech, Macron's proposal will have to include a workable definition of fake news. The expression is quickly becoming watered down to a point where it can mean anything, from an argument someone disagrees with to carefully crafted sinister lies that set out to change the course of democratic processes. Macron's legislation will have to address this. Yeah, and again, that's not an easy task. A number of players will also need to acknowledge their responsibility for the fake news problem. The platform giants who claim innocence are the ultimate enablers. Massive lobbying efforts, and this is the article, by the way. This is the article's point of view, maybe not my own. The platform giants who claim innocence are the ultimate enablers. Massive lobbying efforts are sure to be undertaken as Google, Facebook, and Twitter try to push back on any legislation that would hold them accountable for the content disseminated on their platforms. Facebook, as much as it would like to self-regulate, should not be allowed to do so. As Sandy Paracalas, a former employee who led Facebook's efforts to fix privacy problems on its developer platform, recently pointing out in a column in the New York Times, what I saw from the inside was a company that prioritized data collections from its users over protecting them from abuse. Lawmakers shouldn't allow Facebook to regulate itself because it won't. Absolutely. So if you try to impose rules where if somebody shares fake news, quote unquote, on your platform, you're going to hold the platform itself accountable, you're going to get a cyclical effect where places like Facebook and Twitter are going to start self-regulating, and they're going to determine what is and isn't fake news. And do you really want a bunch of Silicon Valley billionaires determining what is and isn't free speech? Because we rely on these platforms. I mean, these platforms at this point are treading on the waters of a public utility, meaning people rely on it for communication. Which, you know, again, there's a kind of concern over the fact that these platforms are still privately owned companies and can do essentially whatever they want, and have already proven in many, for instances, that our information is the most valuable thing they have. So Macron's legislation is clearly a response to foreign and for now overwhelmingly Russian, again, this is back to the article, interference in electoral processes. He has publicly criticized Russian news sites RT and Sputnik, but has not made clear how he intends to police them. In the debate around this new law, we also need to consider the motor of this debacle. You and me and everyone who clicks on, reads, and shares fake news. So that right there is another red flag. What's been going on here in the States with RT America is basically just xenophobic McCarthyism. So back to Russia then. Exactly. And Macron, I'm not fluent in Macron's politics. I'm not going to pretend that I am. But, you know, the basis of it is that he's kind of your centrist, kind of your establishment politician, kind of comparable to an established Democrat here in the United States. You know, I'd imagine he's to the left of them because, you know, France is a way more progressive country than the United States. But, you know, that's essentially where he's at. So it would make sense that he'd be on board with the whole Russia Gate. That would make sense. And I just had a sip of coffee from my Kurt Vonnegut coffee mug. Somebody just said, Merry Christmas. You're a little late. Christmas is over. But thank you for the sentiment. I had a wonderful holiday season, and I hope you did as well. He at least takes climate change seriously. Right, that's that's our bar now. That's our bar now. Do you acknowledge peer-reviewed science? If you do, you're a step ahead of a lot of politicians that are out there. Do you acknowledge peer-reviewed science? You like my mug? It's a pretty cool mug. It's my Kurt Vonnegut mug. I like it a lot myself. Thank you very much. So, I mean, if this is going to be where the state is determining which outlets are and aren't fake news, I'm adamantly against that. I don't think anybody has any kind of right to make that kind of designation. Furthermore, I see some very sharp red flags. You know, I mean, over here in the United States, we required RT America to register as a foreign agent. We required a Chinese outlet to also register as a foreign agent. And the whole FARA doctrine was introduced in the first place to try to deter Nazi propaganda. However, now it's being used to attack independent media in general, and in particular, any types of bureaus that have any connection to Russia. And again, these are American bureaus. You know, Sputnik here in the United States is an American bureau with American journalists. Same with RT America. Foreign bureaus of different news agencies are common all around the world. That's how we have a global conversation easier. That's why we have Al Jazeera America, BBC America, RT America. And we have American outlets over in other countries. We have American news outlets in Russia. There's a reason for all this. So to kind of paint these outlets just because they're because of their foreign affiliation as fake news, that's xenophobia. And, you know, you want to say, oh, well, you know, if they get funding from foreign outlets, that's a conflict of interest. Okay, you know what else is a conflict of interest? Getting money from Comcast. Being owned by Comcast. Being owned by an ultra-conservative fringe right-wing mogul. Being owned by somebody who's just a businessman that could care less about news. Those are all conflicts of interest as well. I mean, if other countries did what we did in the United States when it comes to media, we would use that as a reason to just discredit those countries automatically. And if you don't believe me, go up to a stranger and just be like, just say, hey, did you know that in Australia, the media, like their media is owned by the same people that make bombs? So they have an incentive. Their media has an incentive to keep them at war all the time. Did you know that about Australia? No, I didn't know that about Australia. Isn't that crazy? Oh my God, yeah, that's terrible. Man, Australia. Good thing we live in the democracy of the United States, right? Yeah, good thing, right? Glad we're not in Australia. Oh wait, did I say Australia? I meant the United States. Because MSNBC up until recently was owned by General Electric, who makes bombs. Now they're owned by the much more ethical company, Comcast, who always wins award for their excellent customer service. So you know what I mean? I mean, and who's to say? So you guys get the idea. If the state is going to determine who is and isn't fake news, and their bar is it a domestic source or not, that's absolutely ridiculous, whether you're in France or whether you're in the United States. And furthermore, if you're going to crack down on sponsored content, that could be an okay thing. However, you have to figure out a very efficient way to implement that. And letting Silicon Valley folks at Twitter and Facebook determine what is and isn't free speech isn't the answer. Nor is, I mean, if anything, you should just say sponsored content's not legal anymore. That a news outlet can't accept sponsored content from an advertiser. They either have to accept a commercial or not a commercial. And if it's not a commercial, guess what it isn't? It isn't news. You know, why does sponsored content even exist unless it was to trick people? Why not just have a commercial? Why do you need to write a piece of fake journalism and have a little disclaimer at the bottom saying, oh, this is sponsored content. This isn't actual journalism. Just kidding. Why do you need to do that? The only reason it exists is to trick people. That's really the only reason it exists. So if you really want to combat fake news at the state level and not tread on some very dangerous waters of causing really dangerous cyclical effects to free speech, just outlaw sponsored content. Start there. That's something that you can implement that would make sense to do. So I think the only thing that makes sense to do is, as far as policy goes, at least a good way to start, outlaw sponsored content. Bella Ryan agrees. I appreciate that. Can't comment today. The act is acting up again. Thanks for streaming. Good stuff so far. And as usual, oh, thank you, Kimmy. Tune in over at YouTube. Someone asked how my weekend was. My weekend was wonderful. And we got some comments here. I shouldn't have to make an extension to highlight sponsored content. I agree. And hip hop, my weekend was wonderful. Winkle, thank you for the star points. I appreciate that. Incremental change will help tremendously. I think so. But it has to be common sense incremental change, and it can't be kind of an overstated incremental change. And let's see if you guys sent me some articles. I'm going over to the Twitter now. Going to see if you guys sent me anything, and I'm not seeing anything from you guys. Let's see. We are one of the very few countries who allow for direct-to-consumer advertising. Yeah. Oh, here we go. I got a couple things from you guys. All right. So let me just make sure I'm in the right order here as I scroll through my Twitter timeline awkwardly. Part of the stream, folks. Part of the stream. Let's see here. Winkle sent this in. This is from The Intercept, which I like The Intercept. Let me give you a Get Your News On with Ron retweet. The other alternative name to the stream is Watch Ron Multitask with Technology. And do a somewhat adequate job, we hope. NSA surveillance bill. This is from The Intercept by a gentleman named Alex Emmons. For anyone just tuning in, you are watching Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means you guys tweet me articles or you post them in our Reddit subsection, and that's what we do for the show. That's what we do for the show. That's how we do this. The NSA surveillance bill would legalize loophole that lets FBI spy on Americans without a warrant. By the way, what that means is I'm seeing this article for the first time too. So you know, if I fumble a word or two, just remember I'm reading it for the first time. So an NSA surveillance bill would legalize a loophole that lets FBI spy on Americans without a warrant. Wonderful. With major NSA surveillance authority set to expire later this month, House Republicans are pushing to pass a bill that would not only reauthorize existing powers, but also codify into law some practices that critics have called unconstitutional. Thank you for that, Kate. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. The bill takes aim at reforming, excuse me. See, there we go. The bill takes aim at reforming how federal law enforcement can use data collected by the National Security Agency, putting a modest constraint on when the FBI can conduct so-called backdoor searches of Americans' communications. But because such searches make use of a legal loophole, critics say the current bill will do more harm than good by explicitly writing the practice into law. All right, so what exactly is going to happen here? The bill would reauthorize Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, which serves as the basis for some of the NSA's largest surveillance programs, and keep it on the books through 2023. The law was first passed in 2008 after the George W. Bush administration's secretly warrantless wiretapping was made public, effectively to legalize what the administration was doing. The law allows the intelligence community to spy on Americans' transnational communications without a warrant, so long as the targets are not Americans. In 2013, documents leaked by whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA vacuums up a tremendous amount of wholly domestic communications through the program as well. Republicans tried to ram through a different incarnation of the month based on a more draconian version passed by the House Intelligence Committee. During a day-long push to drum up support, Republicans on the committee circulated flyers depicting enlarged photos of Islamic State fighters, trying to give the impression that failing to pass the bill would be a gift to foreign terrorists. But leadership backed off after determining they didn't have enough votes to pass it, according to multiple congressional sources. Domestic surveillance is the rare issue on which hard-right Republicans and left-leaning privacy advocates often find common ground. So what does that mean? Typically, you find folks like a Rand Paul, and then you find other left-leaning people on the same page, as in, let's not let intelligence agencies overreach here. Let's not let our desire for security override someone's right to privacy. That's something that your libertarians and your lefties have in common. So the new version of the bill, which was posted on the Rules Committee's website late Friday, is designed to get the buy-in of Republicans on the Judiciary Committee. It includes compromise language taken from a separate bill passed out of that committee in November, which included some modest limitations on existing authorities, including the reform to backdoor searches. All right. The bill takes aim at one of the key problems with the original law, that Section 702 doesn't limit how data can be used by federal law enforcement. That has given rise to the backdoor search loophole, in which the NSA shares certain kinds of information with the FBI, which the FBI then uses to search for Americans' communications without a warrant. Privacy advocates have called backdoor searches unconstitutional and urged Congress to close the loophole by requiring the FBI to get a court order to query Americans' communications. The current bill takes a crack at doing so, requiring the FBI to get a warrant before searching the data in relation to an open criminal investigation. But the bill carves out large exceptions. The FBI doesn't have to apply for a warrant when national security is involved. What does that mean? What national security is involved? That is so vague. What defines national security? National security, so that means within the United States, basically. National security. So what does that mean? I mean, that could apply to anything. That could mean that somebody has a point of view that an establishment may deem as threatening. That could mean that somebody, that could mean something more significant, like maybe they are actually talking to dangerous people. I mean, that could mean so many different things. National security. What defines that? I mean, something that vague. Like if somebody broke into my house, would that be an issue of national security because I'm part of the national group? I live here. My security is in danger. You know, is it something that, what if somebody has something compromising on an intelligence agency, i.e. a whistleblower. That could be used as an issue of national security because, hey, we are an intelligence agency. We deem that we don't want the public to know this, hence national security. We're going to go through your information without a warrant. Or when it determines that there is threat to life or serious bodily harm. Slightly less vague, but still vague, you know? And the bill would continue to allow the FBI to sift through the data even when those searches don't involve a specific criminal investigation, which the FBI already does so often that they have compared it to searching Google. Which I'm going to read that again, which the FBI already does so often, that they have compared it to searching Google. So the FBI sifts through data that they don't have the right to sift through, that has nothing to do with the criminal investigation. They do so often that they have compared it to searching Google. Think about how often you just kind of use Google or a similar search engine. I know some people, you know, they try to use alternative search engines. Think about how often you do that in a day. Think about all the times you need to search something on the internet. You need to just kind of type something in. The FBI does that with the same amount of frequency through information that they should not be going through. Through information they technically shouldn't have the right to go through. But they do have the right to go through it because of these vague anti-privacy laws that we have. And that's exactly what this is. This is not protection. This is anti-privacy. This is overextension. This is Orwellian. So let's see. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. It is unclear how much support the bill will have from Republicans. Several Republicans in the House Freedom Caucus, like Justin Amash, a Republican in Michigan, and Thomas Massie, a Republican in Kentucky, have already come out against it, saying it's unconstitutional for the U.S. to amass data on Americans without a warrant. I agree. The American Civil Liberties Union also released a statement of opposition on Friday, saying the bill risks being read as codification and expansion of certain illegal government practices, such as about collection. The bill is scheduled to be considered by the Rules Committee on Tuesday and could come up for a vote as early as Thursday, according to multiple congressional sources familiar with the process. So it sounds like we're going to get a vote on this week. And we'll see what it does. I mean, this would basically allow the FBI to continue business as usual. Because, again, there are loopholes that allow them to essentially look at your information for no reason. The biggest threat to national security is income inequality. That's according to Sake over here on the live mainstream, and I agree with you. The biggest threat to national security is income inequality. Not being able to search people's informations. I just said informations. Wow. Not being able to search people's information for no reason. Thank you for the pizza, Bella Ryan, and thank you for that article, Winkle. That was a good one. I appreciate it. Nigel sent something over. Sounds like Ron got a cold. I do have a cold. I was going to mention that. I do indeed have a cold. I'm fighting a little bit of the sniffles, and I know I kind of have a nasally voice to begin with. So I apologize. And we have a couple more articles. You guys have been sending stuff in. Thank you very much. So let me try to make sure I stay in order here. Somebody told me Morning Joe did another Bernie slam. That is not surprising. That's kind of what they do. All right, let me see here. Nigel sent this in. Wants to know if I can watch YouTube clips live. So let's check this out. This is about in Venezuela, people are trying to create their own currencies. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so this clip is about, what's up, Kate? And guys, sorry I stepped out for a minute because I actually had to blow my nose. I did say I'm fighting a cold, so I apologize for that. So this is about a community currency, and how do I feel about the idea of community currencies? I like it. I like exploring that kind of stuff. I do recognize the flaws within our currency, especially here in the United States. Let me go ahead and give you a like and a retweet. Here in, I remember I used to live in Seattle, Washington, and up in Bellingham, Washington, which is a small, really cool, hip college town right near the Canadian border. They had this thing, I think it was called like the Green Corner or something like that. I forget what it was, but it was basically organized community bartering where, you know, and there were a lot of people like farm up there and stuff like that. So there would be trading going on. You knew that Rob was the guy that had really good green beans. I'm making this up. And they would, and man, if you want good green beans, you go to Rob. And Rob really loves the eggs that my chickens lay. So, man, I always call up Rob whenever I need some green beans. I'm like, Rob, you got some green beans? Because I got some eggs. 90% of the time, Rob's like, hell yeah, Ron. Get me some of those eggs. I got some green beans for you. Bella, you got to go. Thank you so much for tuning in. And have a good rest of the day. Thank you for your participation as well. So yeah, I mean, I am interested in those kind of currencies. I do see the value in that. I do like the idea of bartering. And please excuse my voice again. I'm struggling a little bit. So yeah, I guess yeah, that's pretty much all I got. As far as that goes. I'm in favor of exploring it, and I will and here's something from Bella Ryan. Thank you very much, Bella. I'm feeling okay. I'm just a little stuffed up, but I'm fine. I have a feeling like tomorrow or the next day I'll totally be back to normal. We're on your article if you can stick around for a few more minutes. We are on your article right now. We are to that point. Let me go ahead and give it a get your news on with Ron retweet here. Cliven Bundy standoff case thrown out in another stunning blow to government. They threw this out? All right. Okay, Las Vegas. A judge Monday threw out criminal charges against Nevada cattleman Cliven Bundy, his two sons, and a co-defendant in their 2014 standoff with federal agents, citing flagrant misconduct by prosecutors and the FBI and not disclosing evidence before and during the trial. The government's conduct in this case was indeed outrageous, said the U.S. District Judge Gloria M. Navarro. There has been flagrant misconduct, substantial prejudice, and no lesser remedy is sufficient. The judge issued a ruling before a packed courtroom with nearly 100 spectators inside and out, more than a dozen waiting at the doors. Cliven Bundy's lawyer put his arm around his client. Thank you, Lord, they said. The dismissal with prejudice, meaning prosecutors can't seek a new trial, marked an embarrassing nadir for the government, which now has failed to convict the Bundys in two major federal cases stemming from separate armed standoffs. So these guys are the people that up in Oregon, they had an armed standoff. And, you know, I'm going by memory here, but I remember like they basically, you know, held themselves up because of something they were opposed to and just sort of had this armed standoff So here's what they were indicted for. They were indicted last year on conspiracy and other allegations, accused of rallying militia members and armed supporters to stop federal officers from impounding Bundy cattle in 2014. The government authorities were acting on a court order filed after Calvin Bundy failed to pay grazing fees and fines for 2 decades. So this guy's refusing to pay fees he should be paying. He organizes an armed standoff, and I remember when this happened. I remember when this was first in the news. And now all the charges against him were dropped. Keep in mind, we live in a country where a police officer can shoot an unarmed black person for no reason and get away with it. Where they can kill an unarmed black person with a chokehold and get away with it. Meanwhile, somebody like Cliven Bundy, who doesn't want to pay fees that they're supposed to pay by law, can have an armed standoff with no consequence. No consequence. And they're saying the FBI messed up here. That's why we're throwing the trial out. Think about the articles we just talked about earlier in this stream. The FBI searches your information, or can search your information on a daily basis the way they search Google for no reason whatsoever. Because of loopholes. And you want to say in this particular case, the FBI acted up and we hold the FBI accountable, so this case was thrown out? You have got to be kidding me. It's unbelievable, the skewed justice that exists in this country. They urged dismissal, saying it was the only remedy for the government's callous disregard of its constitutional obligations to share any potentially favorable evidence with the defense. If we threw away every court case just because there was a callous disregard of constitutional obligations, how about the way this country treats whistleblowers? How about that? Wow, unbelievable. That guy just totally got away with it. Just totally got away with it. All right, guys, we have a few more articles, and they've all been sent already, and we're going to be wrapping around 11. So if you have not tweeted an article yet, please do hold it until tomorrow. For anyone tuning in that might be new to this, especially over on the YouTube, because this is my first official day doing this on YouTube, this is Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream, and you guys tweet me articles at Ron Placone, or you place an article in our Reddit subsection, and that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all of these articles for the first time. I'm seeing all these stories for the first time. I'm learning things for the first time. I just learned about Cliven Bundy this morning. I just learned that right now. I did not know that prior to seeing that article that Bella tweeted at me. I did not know that they declared all that a mistrial. I'm learning that for the first time today. And right now. So I didn't prepare this ahead of time to talk about. I learned this live on the stream with you guys and responded to it viscerally and in the moment. And that's the point of this show. We are literally getting our news together. And I hope you guys dig the concept. This is from Marcus. Let me go ahead and give you a Get Your News On with Ron Reed. You know, it's weird. So whenever you guys tweet me articles, I like the article because you're participating in the stream, and then I retweet it with the Get Your News On with Ron hashtag. And what's weird is that sometimes you guys send me articles that are very sad stories, but I like them. So to somebody that might not know what's going on, it might be a little misleading. They're like, why is he liking these terrible stories? And it's like, no, I'm liking what we're doing. I'm not, you get it. And here's a, for instance, of that, but I think people understand. All right, so this is from This is from Marcus. Thank you, Marcus. It could happen to anyone, and I am seeing this for the first time, and I'm not sure if I even know anything about this story. So let's unpack this. It could happen to anyone. Welder, and off the top of my head, I'm not sure who that's referring to. Welder cleared of rape after Facebook message proved him innocent. Welder cleared of rape after Facebook message proved him innocent, opens up on 2 years of hell. Danny Kaye had denied rape, but was sentenced to 4.5 years behind bars. Okay. Danny Kaye, Welder. Okay, these are two different names, so I'm not sure what's going on here. So let's read the article. A man who was wrongly jailed for rape has spoken out of the years of hell that only ended when his family managed to find deleted Facebook message that proved his innocence. Danny Kaye spent more than 2 years behind bars after police relied on an edited and misleading conversation between himself and his accuser, with cops now reviewing just how they got it wrong. Danny Kaye told the Mail on Sunday, so I'm still not sure who Welder is. I don't know who that is. Danny Kaye told the Mail on Sunday he had trusted the system would find the truth after he was arrested on suspicion of rape in 2012, but was instead brought to trial and eventually convicted. The now 26-year-old said, even now with the conviction quashed, I still can't believe that it took years of pain and stress for this nightmare to end. And the terrifying thought is that if the police and justice system could fail me like this, it could happen to anyone. It wasn't until his sister-in-law, Sarah Madison, checked his Facebook account and was able to find the full archive conversation, which supported Mr. Kaye's version of events, that his appeal could be set in motion. It comes after 3 high-profile rape cases collapsed in the same week, including 2 where bungling cops did not disclose crucial texts sent by the alleged victim. Miss Madison said it had taken her mere minutes to find the archive conversation, despite not being a social media expert, with surprised cops asking her, how did you know how to find the messages and we didn't? Mr. Kaye, who had trained as a welder, said, this isn't some small matter, this is my life. During the 2013 trial, the jury had been given the impression that a message from Mr. Kaye saying sorry was over the alleged rape, but the deleted message instead showed it had been referring to the woman asking why he had been ignoring her. Other messages proved that Mr. Kaye had not lied about his age, as had been presented in court. Again, I don't know the details of this case. I'm learning about all this for the first time. I don't know what this is in reference to. Okay. So let's see. Mr. Kaye had engaged in a fling with his accuser in March 2012, with the accusations brought against him 6 months later. Appeal Judge Mr. Justice Goss said, we have come to the conclusion that in the case of one word against another, the full Facebook message exchange provides very cogent evidence, both in relation to the truthfulness and reliability of the woman and the reliability of Mr. Kaye's accounts and his truthfulness. Derbyshire Police said, we will be reviewing our investigation to find out whether lessons can be learned. Okay, so again, I'm not familiar with the exact details of this case, the things that they referenced that happened prior. I'm not familiar with this. I don't recall hearing about this case in 2012. I still don't know who Welder is. Oh, Welder. Oh, fuck. I'm an idiot. Welder's his job. Okay. That's why there's 2 different. I thought Welder was a last name. Welder's his job. Okay. Wow. All right. Okay, that makes it a little easier. Wow, I'm an idiot. That's part of the fun of this show. I am seeing this article for the first time, and it just put it together. I was like, who the hell's Welder? And then it going down, they don't tell you until later in the article, in fairness. It's not until like the 4th paragraph in that they mention that this guy is a welder. And I just didn't catch it at first. Yeah, so, all right, that's a little confusing, in fairness to me. I bet there's some YouTube comments saying that I'm the biggest moron ever. Fair enough. What are you going to do? Again, this is Get Your News On with Ron, where we literally get our news on together. I am seeing this article and hearing about this story for the first time. So, guys, I can't comment too much on the story itself because I'm not familiar with the 2012 case. I know nothing about the woman involved. I know nothing about Danny Kaye other than what I just read. So to look at this from a broader perspective, it's wrong to assume that the cops are going to always do their due diligence. That's just in reality not the case. In this particular case, they didn't know how to find archived conversations on Facebook, and the guy's sister-in-law did. It's not a crazy sentiment that that could happen. It's not a crazy sentiment that, you know, proper investigations don't always take place. And, you know, we live in a very tough time where we have to tread that fine line of creating a society where it's easier for victims to come forward, where they feel that they have the proper support that they need. That's important. However, you also need to give people their due process and recognize that people are innocent until proven guilty. So it's a hard line to toe. It's not easy. And I recognize the complexity of it. And I think that everybody needs to. And we need to proceed with empathy, and we need to proceed with a respect for the due process. And we also need to recognize that there's very flawed, you know, I mean, especially here in the United States. Again, this happened over in the UK, but here in the United States, police officers are not properly trained. They're not properly screened. They're not properly vetted. Law enforcement is a systemic problem here in the United States. It is a very gross systemic problem. And before you say, not all cops are bad, that's a straw man. That's not the point. I'm sure there's good police officers out there. I know there are. That's not the point, though. When you're talking about a systemic problem, you're talking about a system itself that's broken. When it comes to law enforcement, our system is broken. There are people with gross amount of PTSD that are able to become cops. There are members of the KKK that have become cops. Anonymous showed us that when Ferguson was going down. Members of the KKK are able to become cops. That should not happen. If you subscribe to some ideology that thinks that not all people are created equal, that not all people are worth serving and protecting, guess what? You don't get to serve and protect. Just like a blind person doesn't get to be a taxi driver. And I know it's not a perfect analogy because, you know, a blind person can't help the fact that they're blind. And somebody, you know, has the choice whether or not they subscribe to some horrific ideology. But nonetheless, you get what I'm getting at here. That should disqualify. So there's a very systemic problem in law enforcement. So in situations like this, we can't just assume that all the due diligence in an investigation was done. You can't assume that. So, and again, I don't know much about this particular case. I'm not qualified to talk on it. We have other things to get to, so I don't want to dive too far into the case itself. I'm not familiar with it, but looking at it broadly, the lessons that we can learn are, you know, sometimes investigations are going to be shoddy, especially when you're relying on police officers here in the United States. And everybody needs their due process. That's just how the law works. And, you know, whether justice was served or not, I don't know for sure. I'm not familiar enough with the case to speak on that one way or the other. But, you know, an interesting case nonetheless. All right. Here's something about Amazon. You guys know we do some Amazon videos over on the Jimmy Dore Show. This is from Stop Neoliberalism. I like that Twitter handle. I approve highly. This is from the Columbus Dispatch. Amazon makes list of large companies with workers receiving food stamps. Wow. In short order, Amazon has become one of Ohio's largest employers after receiving tens of millions of dollars of state incentives for building warehouses, data centers, and other projects along the way. Now, the online giant has quickly made its way onto another list, one charting the state's employers with the most workers and their family members who also qualify for food stamps. Amazon ranks 19th on the list of 50 large employers, according to Policy Matters Ohio, a progressive policy group. Amazon had 1,430, workers and family members receiving benefits as of August, the group said on Friday. And there are 5 cities right now competing for Amazon to come to their city. They are throwing state incentives at Amazon left and right to come to their city. They think, my hometown of Pittsburgh is one of them. My family members are praying that Amazon comes to Pittsburgh. And at the holiday table, I was the only one. I was like, you realize it's not going to, the few jobs they're bringing in is not going to be worth what the city's giving them. This is going to, in the long run, this is going to hurt whichever city this comes to. Everybody at the table looked at me like I was insane. They looked at me like I was crazy. Then, a little while later, I was with my cousin, who is an engineer, who is a biomedical engineer, who's familiar with the type of jobs Amazon would be bringing. And when I told him, I'm like, dude, I think the harms are going to outweigh the means. He was like, of course they are. Are you kidding? He looked at me like I just stated the most obvious thing he had ever heard in his life. He's like, yeah, of course. The jobs they're going to bring in versus what the city is throwing at them to try to get them to come. Yeah, whichever city Amazon goes to is going to lose out. And the jobs they're bringing, there's people on food stamps. Amazon can give you a good job if you are one of the tech-savvy people. If you are a programmer or something like that. But if you are an average, like a lower-level worker, like a warehouse worker or something like that, their business practices are disgusting. They have an ambulance waiting outside their distribution center because it saves them money to just take somebody off in an ambulance that passes out from heat exhaustion than it would to provide them with proper working environments and adequate breaks and integrity. Over in the UK, not even in the United States where we have bullshit policies like right to work, but over in the UK, the drivers for Amazon had to wear diapers to make their routes. And that's something that's been going on in the US for a long, long time. We've been doing that, and it's not just Amazon that does it. It's a lot of the logistic companies in general. They have these systems in place where you have to maintain a certain route, and in order to physically maintain it, you have to cook the books. You can't take your required breaks. It's impossible. And if you don't make those routes, guess what? You lose your job. The company has said that full-time employees at its warehouses receive competitive wages and comprehensive benefits, including healthcare, retirement, and company stock awards. And you might even get a free ambulance ride. You pass the fuck out, we might not charge you for the ambulance ride. You just saved $5,000. Huh? We're philanthropists. And they used to have a quota for where, I don't know if they still have those quotas for warehouse workers, but it used to be if you didn't maintain a certain quota, you wouldn't get your wage. And I know that because I used to live in Seattle, so I knew people that had those warehouse jobs. Anybody could get a warehouse job like that, even in the worst recession, because their turnaround was like this. Because they give you these ridiculous quotas, and if you didn't meet it, you didn't get paid. And then because I think they stopped that a little bit, people will tell you that Amazon got better. Oh, Jeff Bezos isn't so bad. He ended these practices. Yeah, he got caught. His practices are maybe slightly less horrific compared to where they started, but he got caught. If somebody is caught robbing a bank and then they don't rob a bank again because they got caught the first time, you say, "Oh, they're not so bad now." Like, it's amazing the mental gymnastics people do to try to applaud one of the most brutal, predatory capitalists that our generation has ever seen. I mean, Jeff Bezos is a very compromised person, to say the very least. He has deals with the CIA. He meets with weapons manufacturers. He owns a newspaper called the Washington Post. And by the way, in that newspaper, there are laws that you cannot make the advertisers look bad. Who are their advertisers? Oil and gas, among others. And you can't say anything critical about him. The Washington Post is a propaganda, war profiteering rag. You want to talk about fake news? That's fake news. And now you see the jobs that they bring in. And there are still cities that are pleading for Amazon to come there, that are begging for Amazon to come. Oh, and some of you guys pointed out to me, Ron, I think he's a welder. Some of you guys caught it before I did. You were like, Ron, he's a welder. Welder's his job. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that again. All right, this is going to be our last article for the day. Let me make sure I just have the order right here and that I covered everything. I don't want to miss anybody. Yeah, all right. So here is Kimmy's article. Maureen, thank you so much for the star points. I appreciate that. Kimmy sent this one over in. I don't know. Sometimes I just talk and it's weird. This is from the New York Times. Democratic senator releases transcript of interview with dossier firm. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Of course, a bunch of pop-ups are popping up all over the place because this is the New York Times. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, somebody who I hope gets primaried out desperately. Democrat should not even be next to her name. She is a Republican. Dianne Feinstein is a Republican. I mean, even calling her like a centrist Democrat would be inaccurate. She supported the Bush tax cuts. She's adamantly against single payer. She's against living wages. She is a Republican. Straight up, she is a Republican. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, the top Republican on the Judiciary Committee, on Tuesday unilaterally released a highly anticipated transcript of the company's interview with one of the founders of the firm that produced a salacious and unsubstantiated dossier outlining a Russian effort to aid the Trump campaign. The interview with Glenn R. Simpson of Fusion GPS took place last summer and was expected to shed light on the origins of the firm's work, its concerns about the Trump campaign's activities, and what the FBI may have done with the information. Mr. Simpson and Peter Fritsch, the firm's co-founders, had called the transcripts released last week in an op-ed in the New York Times in which they accused Republicans of concealing their testimony in an effort to smear the dossier and distract from questions about the Trump campaign's ties to Russia. How could you distract from that when you have a corporate media that talks about it literally 75% of the time? I mean, according to some of the studies that have been done out there, MSNBC spends literally 75% of their time talking about Russia. And when you just harp Russia, 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 Trump's approval goes up. When you actually talk about issues and you hold Trump accountable for his policies, which are just Republican policies, his numbers go down. The Russiagate strategically is a disaster. There is no evidence of actual collusion. They're probably going to find out that it was just typical white-collar crime money laundering. And I don't know about you. I did not need a 1.5-year investigation to tell me that Trump is a shady oligarch that has dealings with other shady oligarchs around the world, including Russians. I didn't need a 1.5-year investigation to come to that conclusion. I don't know who did. I really don't. But McCarthyism's good for ratings. So when is this going to stop? I have no idea. I thought it would have been over by now. I think they're going to try to. I think get yourself. Wait, I got to read this real quick. Sake just put in the chat, get your news on with Ron because get your red baiting on with Rachel doesn't scan. I like that slogan, Sake. I like it. Get your news on with Ron because get your red baiting on with Rachel doesn't scan. That, of course, is referring to Rachel Maddow, somebody I used to consider a diamond in the rough. I used to love Rachel Maddow. But, man, as of recent, she has really let us down. And when I say us, I mean progressives. She has let us down big time. Between the nonstop Russia hysteria, between her pretending to not know what net neutrality is or how it works. She gets a paycheck from Comcast, by the way, who is anti-net neutrality. Comcast wants to see net neutrality go away. So you have Rachel Maddow, a Rhodes Scholar, a genius. Rachel Maddow is a genius. She's a very intelligent woman. Pretending she doesn't understand net neutrality. Mr. Simpson has also spoken with investigators from the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, which have their own investigations into Russia's election interference. By the way, it used to be collusion. Now it's changed to interference. They keep moving the goalposts because it's been 1.5 years and they've pretty much found nothing. Nor do we're not even sure what exactly Trump's being accused of. And this is coming from, look, I don't like Trump. I'm not a Trump apologist. I'm just as disgusted as the next person that he is president. I think it's disgusting. on so many levels. However, I'm not going to let the fact that I don't like Trump or his policies or anything that he's about, I'm not going to let that cut off my critical thinking skills to the point where I get obsessed with, yeah, you can watch me on the YouTube or here. BSN just said, I've been watching on YouTube. You can watch on both. Crazy. I'm not going to let that distract me from what's really going on. And what's really going on, the best thing we can do from Trump is learn how he won. He won by selling this idea of Republican populism, which is a lie and a myth. So maybe a real populist could really inspire people the way Bernie Sanders did. We're back to another repeal without replacing problem. Mr. Simpson has also spoken. Okay, I already read that. Neither committee had intentions of releasing the transcripts in its interview with Mr. Simpson. Ms. Feinstein moved to do so without the committee's Republican chairman, Senator Charles E. Grassley of Iowa, almost certainly escalating partisan tensions on the committee. Mr. Grassley last week rejected the firm's request to release the transcript, citing concerns that its release could taint the committee's ongoing investigations related to Trump's election meddling. Now it's meddling. It was collusion. Now it's just meddling, interference. Yeah, we interfere in other nations' elections all the fucking time. We do that all the time. We did that in Russia and celebrated it. The United States did that in Russia and we celebrated it. Mr. Grassley, along with another Republican on the panel, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, issued a criminal referral last week for the dossier principal author, former British spy named Christopher Steele. Fusion GPS was hired by the Washington Free Beacon, a conservative website, in September 2015, and the DNC and Clinton campaign later funded its work, including that of Mr. Steele. Republicans have repeatedly and vocally raised concerns that the dossier, a set of reports paid for by the Democrats, could have been mishandled by the FBI as it was opening its own investigation into the Russian effort in the Trump campaign. More partisan bickering that's distracting from what's really going on. So, we'll see if this transcript yields any fruit. I kind of doubt it. Almost every Russiagate story I see, I feel like Lucy with the football. You know what I mean? And I know you guys share that. You guys share that because you want us to unpack it in a critical way. And I totally get that. But it's like, every time you think, oh, well, maybe they found something significant. And then every time it's always a misleading headline with a small disclaimer in the third paragraph saying, by the way, none of this has been confirmed. And you feel like Lucy with the football. You feel like you I'm sorry. You don't feel like Lucy. You feel like Charlie Brown. Lucy's my cat, by the way. She's asleep over there. She's not a fan. She's not buying this. You feel like Charlie Brown. Like, oh, I bet they found up. Nope. And also keep in mind, money laundering and Russiagate are not the same thing. Money laundering, a lot of people have been saying that from the beginning. Yeah, Trump's a shady oligarch. He probably has shady oligarch dealings with Russian oligarchs, and he doesn't want those to be uncovered. So he's trying to cover that up. Yeah, that's not collusion, though. That's just white-collar crime as usual. And it's probably not going to be enough to, bring Trump down. And by the way, if we impeach Trump, we get Pence. Would you rather have an incompetent sociopath or a competent one? I mean, how is this concept lost on so many people? I don't get it. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, but anyway, guys, let's end on something a little more optimistic besides my stuffy nose. This is from Long Beach. This is our last article of the day. And this is a good one. If it loads. Two progressive millennials in Kansas, of all places, won their races. And there's some lessons that we can take from them. And if this article would load, I'd be able to tell you what they are. Here we go. Progressive millennials win Kansas races. People write off flyover states as red. After young progressives win local races in Kansas, there are hints of change in a red state. In recent months, political elections in Alabama and Virginia have captured major media attention. But as the nation's focus has been on these contested and explosive elections, 2 Kansas public servants have been more quietly working towards change in their community. On November 7th, Kansas voters elected Brandon Johnson to serve on the Wichita City Council on District 1 and Angela Baker on the Board of Education. As political outsiders, their elections were watched closely. They both won by large margins and represented a decisive shift in Kansas local politics. And that's how it starts, you guys. It starts on the local level. And there is a grassroots progressive political revolution that is happening. DSA candidates are winning across the board. They won 2 seats in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There have been some big victories that are worth celebrating. Lee Carter over in Virginia. And let's keep in mind what's really worth celebrating. What's worth celebrating is the DSA candidates, the progressives that are winning their races and are starting to infiltrate the system. What's not worth celebrating and saying that all our problems are solved is in Alabama when a centrist corporatist Democrat is so uninspiring, he barely beats a pedophile. He barely beats Doug Jones beat a pedophile by less than 2 percentage points. I'm sorry. That is pathetic. If he was going up against a serial killer, he probably would have lost. He probably would not have been able to beat a serial killer. They would have been like, oh, well, the other person's a serial killer, but I don't know. Maybe it's like the Punisher. Maybe they had a reason for it. Maybe it was vigilante justice. I don't know. And this other guy is boring as shit. I'm going to go with the serial killer. Plus, if he's a serial killer, if I don't vote for him, I might be. Who knows? That's not, and granted, I'm glad that Roy Moore is gone. Don't get me wrong. I'm thrilled that he's gone. I wish there was someone better than Doug Jones replacing him. And I know Doug Jones did some okay things back in the day, but as of recent, he is a corporatist. He's against single payer. He's against living wages. You know, he's not. Is he better than Roy Moore? Yes. But isn't it sad that our bar is that low? Isn't it sad that the people in Alabama, they didn't vote for anything. They voted against a pedophile. Those were the options they were given. Here you have nothing or a pedophile. Nothing, just establishment bullshit, not going to do shit to help you, or a pedophile. Those are your choices. And I wonder why most people don't vote. I wonder why voter turnout is so shitty in this country. It's because we give people something. We don't give people something to vote for. We give people something to vote against. That's all. But on the grassroots level, there are progressives, and there were 2 of them in Kansas, that are giving people something to vote for. And when you give people something to vote for, you can see really blue candidates even in a red state like Kansas. Because those dichotomies really don't apply when you have the right messaging. That's why Bernie Sanders can go do a town hall in the reddest of the reddest districts and get a standing ovation when he talks about giving everybody health care. Because yes, the general person wants educational opportunities without going into debt. The general person wants to be able to go to a doctor and wants other people to be able to go to a doctor too, regardless of how much money they have. And by the way, for a democratic experiment to work, you need all those things. You need an educated, healthy populace for a democracy to work. So I guess that's the best thing to take away here. Give people something to vote for. And you can have progressives in Kansas, and you can have progressives anywhere. And it's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. Guys, we are totally out of time. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. If you enjoyed this and you like what you heard, please do tune in. We do this every Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be streaming on both LiveMe and YouTube from now on. If you want to support this show, patreon.com/Ron Placone for as low as $1 a month, and you can give it any level you're comfortable with, and you get all the same content. For just as low as $1 a month, you get exclusive podcasts once a week. You get exclusive videos. You get writings. You get dialogues from my cat, Lucy, who is a socialist feminist poet. Lucy, my cat, she writes dialogues. They're a lot of fun. You get full stand-up sets that are not available on my YouTube channel or anywhere else. Also, if I come perform in your town, which I'm booking dates for 2018 now, you get to go to that show for free if you're a patron. Also, when my album is done this year, I'm doing an album this year, you get that album delivered to your inbox. Also, I'm doing a book in 2019. You're going to get that delivered to your inbox as well. So if you are able, patreon.com/Ron Placone. I know it's a tough time. I totally get that. But hey, $1 a month. And by the way, we do meetups. We did a successful meetup in Portland, a successful meetup in Pittsburgh, and a successful meetup in Los Angeles. I'm going to be doing more of them. You find out about those via my Patreon, so please consider it. And again, this has been Get Your News On with Ron. All right. I'll send you off with the theme. Sorry again about my cold, you guys. Oh, the City Hall thing? I'll be announcing more on that later, Kate. I promise. I posted something about it on my Facebook. Get your news on with Ron. If you want to know what's going on, get your news on today. Get your news on with Ron. If you want to know what's going on, let's go they don't start World War III. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together. We'll make it our own. Get your news on with Ron. If you want to know what's going on, get the news on today. This is the Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. That means you guys tweet the articles or post them on Reddit, and that's how we make this show. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone, ronplacone.com. Find out when I'm coming to a city near you. I'm going to Texas. I'm going to Illinois. I'm going to Virginia and more. Dates are being announced on a daily basis. Patreon.com/Ron Placone if you are so able. RonPlacone.com. I will be back. We do this every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay safe in this crazy world of ours. Peace.